But I think it's fair to say that, one of the great achievements of the British Empire was to spread a certain kind of liberalism, classical liberalism around the world in a way that I myself, as a classical liberal, think was very beneficial.
Yes, I even if it was pursued with the worst of motives, not all the time, but a lot of the time, and was inflicted with terrible violence. There was something about that liberal democratic, as well as socialism in the 30s and 40s, and independence came under the socialist government in Britain.
My
church.
father he was a poor kid. He was an orphan. He gets to London on a scholarship in 1944. He goes to London to get a law degree. He's called to the bar, trained as a barrister, and he gets a PhD at the School of Oriental and African Studies. He started out studying with Harold Lasky at the LSE and then moves. He spends 5 years. I always think about this when I was in grad school. He spent 5 years in London on a scholarship, and he gets a law degree, he gets a PhD, and he works full-time for David Astor at The Observer as a foreign correspondent. He covers he follows the Allied armies as they went around conquering Europe. And and because he was an Indian subject, he was a British subject, in the 45 election, he could vote. If you were in London as an Indian during you could vote. So I asked him, because he was a great Churchill fan. Oh, we had busts of Churchill. We had all the collected, the usual history of the English-speaking people, World War I, World War II memoirs. And I said, so did you vote for Churchill? He said, oh, good Lord, no, of course not. I voted for Attlee, for Labour. And I said, why? I said, because you admired Churchill. He said, yeah, I admired him as a speaker, as a statesman, but it was very simple. A vote for Labour was a vote for Indian independence. A vote for Churchill was a vote for empire.
Fascinating. And it's come full circle in ways that I think not many people have really absorbed yet. In the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is from Indian immigrants. He's kind of like you. He's a third culture kid, 2 steps removed from the Indian continent, although his Indian parents also went through Kenya and Tanzania on the way to the United Kingdom. And now he is running the country. I wonder what your father would have thought if he was told that in not a very long time, within 2 decades, an Indian immigrant will be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I think he'd be kind of gobsmacked. Am I wrong?
He'd be gobsmacked, but he'd be thrilled. My father was a huge fan of the British. He was, to a fault, somebody who believed that, as I said, they withheld those values from Indians, but they had great values. He once said to me after he came back from America, and this is a point which I was studying in America, he said to me, the English are still the most civilized people in the world. And I said to him, what are you talking about? They're civilized, they enchained you, he went to British jails. And he said, yeah, but there's a certain elegance with which they do things. And he was going on and on. So he would have been absolutely thrilled. And to have it happen, in a country which did not seem until very recently to be moving in that direction. I mean, this is something you know better than I, Andrew, but Britain in the 70s was a place where you were seeing a massive backlash to Indian immigration. Enoch Powell, member of parliament, for those listening who don't know, this is a guy who rocketed to fame on a speech in which he said, I see the Tiber foaming with blood, predicting the fall of Britain like the fall of Rome, all because it had let in these Indians. And from there to go to this, I mean, I actually give David Cameron a lot of credit. I think Cameron is the guy who, how the Republican Party never did do that soul searching after Mitt Romney's loss about what they should do to be more multicultural. I think Cameron did.